Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review, and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. Today, I'm going to be reviewing / recommending to you The Wandering Inn. So, I finished last week Volume 1 of The Wandering Inn. I'm back to recording this video, so it's probably not going to go out for a little while after that. However, what I want to tell you guys is, I finished that book, and I really liked the reading of it, and I liked the reading experience that I had. And because it's a book which I have done full spoiler discussions on as we go through, so I've read it chapter by chapter, and each chapter I've come back with my thoughts. What I'm going to be doing for this particular video is a bit different to my review videos normally. So I'm going to tell you guys up front that I gave this 5 stars, but what I also want to talk to you guys about is how I read the book, why I'd recommend it, why you should read it the way I read it, which, selfishly, I'm going to tell you to do that. And the majority of this video is kind of be a kind of like pitch and recommendation to non-readers of The Wandering Inn. So if you've never touched The Wandering Inn, if you don't know what it's about, I'm here to help. So The Wandering Inn is primarily the story of a woman named Erin Solstice, who appears one day in a fantasy world. She is a college student, she's a chess master, and she literally just wakes up one morning like in a field. And this field happens to have monsters in it. And basically we follow her story and the story of a few other characters as new POVs are added as the story gets bigger and more complex. And the author, Pirateaba, who is chooses to remain anonymous, which is why we only know to call them Pirate or Pirateaba. They have written this really fantastic world, and the story is actually a progression fantasy. So it has, leveling up, it has skills, and people like shout hammer blow and then do big overhead hits with an axe and stuff. It's that kind of story. But aside from that kind of story, we also have this incredible world building. We have fantastic characters. And we have a really interesting story which has tons and tons of potential, places to go. And the interesting thing about the potential is the people who love this series, who've read all like 14 million words, will tell you that the potential is essentially limitless, that the story is, goes to places that they truly love. And they, some people are calling this like, the peak of fantasy fiction. And while I have to say, I do think that in some ways a traditional novel has the ability to kind of have a stronger thematic kind of beginning, middle, and end. So for example, if I look at Lord of Chaos by Robert Jordan, so this is the 6th book in the Wheel of Time. I just finished this recently, and I absolutely loved it. I gave this 5 stars. I did give The Wandering Inn, did I give it 5 stars or 4 stars? I'm not actually sure, to be honest with you guys. I had a great experience reading it. But yeah, so the difference you'll find between something like The Wandering Inn and The Wheel of Time is that Jordan is able to plan his story arcs. I believe he actually was more of a discovery writer, but he's able to plan his endings. So he's able to go like, at the end of this book, Rand is going to fight Balsamon, and there's going to be an epic duel in the sky. That sounds really cool. And he can plan to hit that moment. And you can do that absolutely with The Wandering Inn, but oftentimes with a web serial. I think that the way that Pirate writes it is they kind of come to a point in the book and they're like, right, I think I want to wrap this volume up soon and start book 2 or book whatever. And so they do bring it to kind of, there is quite an epic finale to The Wandering Inn Volume 1, but the kind of main antagonist that you see was not very well built up. You basically hear about them in the chapter you see them for the first time. And while aspects of that character had a lot of build-up, so this kind of antagonist is basically a giant monster at the bottom of a ruin, and you see about that ruin throughout the story, but you don't really get any hints about this kind of antagonist character. It's one of those things, though, where if you like writing like Robin Hobb, for example, where she's fantastic at slice of life stuff, that's very much the basis of The Wandering Inn. So you learn about, people, you learn about cultures, you learn about how the characters spend their days, you learn quite a lot about different professions. So Erin is obviously an innkeeper, and she's slowly learning from being just a normal college student how she can, run an inn, how she can make food, how she can make alcohol. And then you have characters like Ryoka, who you meet later on, who is a runner, which is kind of like an on-foot courier. And the way that she specifically interacts with the leveling and the skills system is really interesting. Let's move on a little and we'll talk about how you can read this book. So there's actually a lot of different ways you can read it. And one of them is 100% free. And it's the way that I actually read it. So you can read this book 100% for free on the Wandering Inn's website. So you just go onto the website, you click to volume 1, and you just start reading. Pirateaba has rewritten volume 1, like huge chunks of it, to the point where the story is the same, but the execution is much better. Now, I read that rewrite of volume 1. Unfortunately, the other ways that you can read volume 1 are through the ebook and the audiobook, and both of those are the original version. So the improved version of volume 1, which it comes with Pirateaba's like 7 years of practice as being an author, is not the one that is the easiest to access for people who are traditional ebook audiobook readers and listeners. However, the serialized format of the rewrite version, where that's, the chapters the book is broken down into individual chapters. Each chapter is its own individual, like almost like a blog entry kind of on a blog. So it's not actually a blog, it's written as a book, but it's like each entry is a different web page. Each chapter is a different web page. So you can go onto the website, read yourself a chapter, and then step away. So this is a really interesting thing that I would recommend to you guys. So I read this book a chapter a week. So at the beginning, when the chapters were very short, I was reading 3 or 4 chapters. Once it got to the point where reading each chapter was like almost an hour's worth of work, I knew that I couldn't continue to read multiple chapters and still be able to come back and discuss it, and then go and read more chapters and then put that together as a video each week. So you'll find, I think, for the first like 10 or maybe even up to 20 chapters, I was reading multiple per week. And then I was like, no, I'm going to make it achievable and easy for myself. And I just started doing 1 chapter a week. And I do really recommend that you read this book over a longer period of time. So the original people who read this book, they'd have read it a couple of chapters a week probably, as it was posted, as it was coming out. And that kind of gives you space to have like cliffhangers. It gives you space to unpack your feelings when there are big, character deaths, big moments in the story. And I really enjoyed that time to decompress between chapters. I think that if I had like binge read all of volume 1, it wouldn't have had the same impact on me. Because it didn't feel like as much of an achievement as well, I expect. If you read like volume 1 in a week, like I read it in like 9 months. So the difference in terms of how I experienced the story, I think, did improve it. And you can read this book. So one of the things is, like I was saying to you guys, it's just on a website. It's just on your web browser. So you can read this book 100% for free, no payment whatsoever. Go onto your phone, go on the Wandering Inn. And here's my recommendation. Every single person everyone we know has blank moments of time that you can't fill with something meaningful usually. So, or you could feel it was something meaningful, but we all choose not to. We choose to do things like scroll Instagram reels. We choose to do things like post on Twitter. But what you could do is replace that time with the wandering in. You could add hours and hours of reading time to your reading, and the more you read, the better you are at reading. The faster, the more proficient you are. And this is my recommendation. So read The Wandering In on the toilet, read it in the queue at the pharmacy, read it on the bus. It's such a good story. It's really, really accessible. Like, the writing is very much the prose is very strong, but it's also very accessible. So we're not looking at something that's like Brandon Sanderson. I would say we're looking at somewhere between him and some of our more accomplished prose authors. So very, very accessible, simple to read, fun to read. We're not reading Patrick Rothfuss here. Like, that's not what this is about. But I don't think that you would read this and have any complaints about the prose. And as I was saying, it's just really accessible, and I really enjoy that sort of stuff. So I love books that I can just get straight into, books that don't make me look up words, books that don't I have quite a large vocabulary, so if I'm looking up a word, it's a weird word. Books that have strong characters, that have really, really interesting character interactions. There is, unfortunately, I'm denied about whether to talk about this. There's a bad chapter. So in this book, there is a chapter where a character makes a multiple in a row incredibly out of character decisions. And they're not built up. They aren't, they do lead you to believe, you are led kind of towards them, but not in any way in the severity of the actual chapter. And if I had read that chapter early on in the book, I have to say I probably would have DNF'd The Wandering In. But because it came near the end, I was able to go right, I know this author can write. I know they've got a good story here. I know that I'm enjoying this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step away, and I'm going to come back to this book next week and be kind of reinvigorated and read another chapter, and I know I'll have a good time. And I absolutely did. So as I've said before, there is that mild warning from me that there's a bad chapter. And I genuinely do think it's poorly written. It's not like it's, these decisions weren't great, those decisions weren't great. I do think it's just bad. But that is one chapter out of 63. And also there's interlude chapters with really interesting new story concepts and characters. And while, yes, there is that bad chapter, we also, I've read a lot of books that have a few iffy moments. And if you think about collecting all those iffy moments into one chapter, that's kind of what The Wandering In has done, because there's anything like that in the rest of the book. The lore and the way it's working and the way the world works together is really interesting. And honestly, I can't wait to see where this story goes. I've seen some reviews by people like Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews, where he's been talking about how amazing The Wandering In is. I've actually started volume 2, so I've got it here actually. I read my first chapter of volume 2 today from the ebook. Now that the ebook and the website version are the same, I'll be reading the ebook version. So yeah, just genuinely, it's a really fantastic series. Like I said, it's a great way to fill blank time if you want to read it episodically like I did. But you can also just buy the ebook and read the whole thing. I think there's 10 ebooks out now. Or maybe there's more ebooks, but there's 10 volumes out now, I think. All I know is it's 14 million words, which is something 4 times longer than The Wheel of Time. And I'm gonna take a year and a half to read The Wheel of Time. So at my rate of reading a chapter a week of The Wandering In, I think I have a fantastic story that I can read for basically forever. if you'd like to talk to me about the Wandering Inn, so say for example you want me to pitch it to you, that's what this video is. But if you want to ask questions about it, then please do drop down into the comments below. If you have read the Wandering Inn and you want to pitch it at other people, drop your comments in the comments down below. Why you think people should read the Wandering Inn, what your favourite moments from Volume 1 are, and separate those because we don't want to spoil people. And yeah, so just pitch up. Tell people why they should read it. And I'm actually going to be looking at the comments of this video to make a full spoiler discussion. So I haven't been able to grab another person to have a discussion with about the Wandering Inn because no one is as weird as I am and has read this the way that I've read it. But I do still want to do a full spoiler discussion, which is like my favorite moments. But I'd really love to hear from you guys as well. What are your favorite moments in Volume 1 of the Wandering Inn? Who are your favorite characters? What surprised you? All this sort of stuff. Your favorite elements of the lore, everything, anything you want to talk about the Wandering Inn. I'm going to be collating those comments, and I'll discuss them when I discuss the full spoiler version of this video. So this video is for people who really haven't watched the Wandering Inn, although watched it, read it. Although if you've read it, I'm sure you've enjoyed it. But there is going to be a video that is purely for the fans, for the people who stuck with me and have read along and watched my videos. So those people will be served by another video, which will probably be next week, so that I can give time for this one to generate some comments. So yes, please leave comments. If you're going to leave comments that have spoiler moments, just separate those from. So do like 2 comments. Do one that's like, you should read the Wandering Inn because it's XYZ, and then do another one that's like, spoilers, these are my favorite moments. That would be fantastic, because then that will help people who haven't read it. They'll know to just skim over the ones that start with spoilers. So thanks so much for watching. Please do, while you're on the way down to comment on this video, give it a like, and of course subscribe to the channel for more Wandering Inn content. I've already recorded the first episode of Season 2, which will probably come out before this video actually. I've already recorded the first episode of Season 2 where I'll be reading Volume 2, and by the time I'll have read a couple more chapters probably by the time you see this. So hope you're safe and well, etc., and I will speak to you tomorrow.